Welcome back to the Eric Krown crypto channel, wishing you a happy to these starts. It's like CPI Wednesday, baby. It's CPI Wednesday. Jerome Powell's about to come in and hump us all, as it is hump day as well. And there's plenty to discuss on the higher term timeframes, actually, as a few setups do start to emerge, which do provide a bit of a probabilistic standing for what essentially is likely, or most likely, I should say, to happen today, and probably throughout this week, maybe into early next week, as we kind of progress through May. Anyways, other than that, I wanted to once again give the spotlight to the buyback promotion going on. They got 0% on maker fees for derivative contract orders. Plus, you can get the Jewel Light for free for the first 30 days. Holy shit, I've only said this a million times, but still can't get it out properly. More importantly, you can find the directions in the link in the description below if that promotion interests you. And then, of course, they also do have their decentralized exchange arm called Apex, which I believe a lot of people are probably more interested in right now because a lot of exchanges are going KYC. Again, check that out for yourself if it's relevant for you or not. There's, again, another affiliate link in the description below, which will actually award you 5% off of your fees for that exchange for any trade that you make for the lifetime of your account. All right, sweet. Let's just jump right into it, starting off with something on a bit of a different angle here. Going to be looking at Dixie, the dollar index. And, you know, this always is, it's another engagement chart in the way that I like to put it. It's like people put this out on YouTube, Twitter, these sorts of things as like humongously important. And in some cases, you know, it is humongously important. Don't get me wrong. But ultimately, it's always better to be looking at the asset at hand if you are interested in trading that asset at hand rather than looking at something like this. But regardless of that, just create some new content. We do see that the weekly on Dixie is starting to put in potential regular bullish evidence over here, as we do see the RSI making ever so slightly potential higher highs, or sorry, higher lows, and price action over here making slightly lower lows. So that would be the impetus for a bit of divergence. And in this case, that would be implicative that we probably do witness a bounce on Dixie somewhere around about $1.03, maybe $1.04 in the coming month and a half, as this is a weekly time frame. So obviously it's going to take some time to play out. But this would obviously be invalidated if with any sort of a closure below about a 101. In that case, I'd have to be looking much lower, somewhere around about 98.5 to maybe even 98 even. As we can see right there. But ultimately, this is likely going to be, a big topic of conversation today because obviously CPI coming out, that's going to massively influence the Fed's decisions, which in turn going to massively influence the dollar's value relative to other currencies. Anyways, so if you are looking at this as traditionally relevant, then you would be looking at that as a signal for risk on assets, meaning that risk on assets typically do play opposite of Dixie on the higher term timeframes. Not always true though in my experience. In fact, we've seen both of these things rally significantly, maybe in like 2021, as you see over here, when Bitcoin and all risk assets were putting in like biblically amazing rallies to new all-time highs. So was Dixie as well, actually. So just because Dixie rallies doesn't mean it's like a bullet in the head for all of the other assets, but you know, a lot of people like to make some sort of analysis on that. So just wanted to make sure that that was on the board right there. Anyways, going into Bitcoin now, I do want to go down to the daily over here. You know, nothing's really changed from yesterday to today, or even in the past 3 days now, as Bitcoin kind of hugs on for dear life around this $27,000-ish region. Now, I still have kind of the same analysis on this one in the sense that the current range, basically to the downside, looking at about just below $27,000. If you want to put a number on it, about 26.8 again. Versus the top side of the range currently just below $30,000. If you want to put a number on it, about 29.7, 29.6 region. As long as Bitcoin's kind of also between that region, I don't really have too many new things to be going over. But yes, this does provide a bit of a double left shoulder, double right shoulder, head and shoulders over here. Which, yeah, definitely can happen. And the more interesting thing about that is that upon confirmation on this particular pattern, we can start to actually have implied targets from it, which do have a high degree of being hit. Again, assuming that we have confirmation to begin with, which, you know, at some point, Bitcoin's probably going to break outside of this range, right? So in the case of a head and shoulders, obviously, there is a higher probability for a downside move. Again, fully confirmed below that 26.8 region right here. And at that point, probably looking somewhere down around about $23,000 would be the implied move here. Maybe, yeah, about 23 or... about 23 even, basically. Probably bounce along the way at about 25, but ultimately somewhere down around here, likely in line with the daily 200 zip moving average as well, would be kind of a pretty obvious target. Again, can take some time, obviously, but probably bounce at 25, but ultimately that's kind of where I'd be looking for, maybe even lower than that over time as well, depending upon where the weekly does land itself. By the same token, back above that right shoulder, we actually would have a failure condition on this one, which you can imply the same sort of move to the upside in this case, which would put Bitcoin somewhere between like 34.5 to 34,500 to 35,000 bucks, kind of in alignment with the last major CME gap that we do see from nearly a year ago over here, coming in from May of 2022 when Bitcoin broke down from about 35,000 bucks. So that would also be kind of poetic to see that play out as well. Anyways, back on to Bitcoin over here. Maybe CME is just a better one to be watching right now. There are more bearish signals actually than bullish right now. On the daily right here, many drives of bearish divergence come off that last high. Now, obviously, these are starting to get well and far away, so I don't trust them as much. But we do see that the daily jewel is also having downside signature right here as well, or potential for it, I should say. This one is unconfirmed as of right now. If Bitcoin basically closes here or lower by end of day for CME, then yes, we will see that dark blue print. That would be a higher probability for a downside move. Also supported by DMI in the background being red over here as well. That'd be pretty damn good indication that, we probably do see things break down. But of course, when CPI comes out later today, there's going to be some whippy price action. So you might see a short-term upside move, get rejected, and then come back down if that one's going to play out. So yes, anyways, moving on now, I did want to get into stochastic momentum actually, and just kind of go through the pivots right now before we actually get into the setups of the day. And starting off with, we could go over the 3-day, but is this one even closing tonight? Actually, it is closing tonight, but let's go to spot price action. That one's not closing tonight, so we're just going to ignore that one for right now. Keep it nice and steady with the daily over here. We're still starting to see, we're still seeing a bit of that resetting that we were looking for the past few days here. Still the daily, however, going to be showing downside momentum as long as Bitcoin's below 29,350, but the same sort of analysis as before in the sense that the longer that Bitcoin goes sideways here without breaking below 26.8, this will naturally have a bullish reset. 12-hour time frame is already pretty much doing that. Current pivot is 28,550. Obviously, that number is going to come down, I would imagine, significantly upon the next closure right before CPI comes out. Again, getting in that critical zone right here as well. 6-hour time frame is already down there, obviously, and going to be turning up and showing upside momentum as long as Bitcoin's above 27,600. Currently, Bitcoin's about $100 above that right now, or almost $100, I should say. 4-hour time frame, same thing here as well. Again, coming all the way down in the critical zone, going to be showing upside momentum above 27,700 basically. And the hourly time frame is going to be flippy floppy, but actually up right here as well, as long as Bitcoin's above 27.7 here too. So again, sideways is going to be interpreted as good for the boo laws. Again, sideways above about 26.8 or so. It's kind of the line in the sand as far as I'm considered on the on the higher term timeframes. On the shorter term timeframes, obviously going to be having big problems below about 27.2 or so. Anyways, yes. So now that we've gone through that, we know the pivots. We can get into the actual setups. And as always, when it comes to these setups, I always want to say we're talking about statistics, not certainties. And in this case, we do have a 6-hour time frame setup over here on the HPDR indicator and even the Joule as well, actually. But we'll start off with this one because this was the one that we were looking at yesterday. And in this case, we see obviously several closures below this blue range low right here, right? So that started to happen. I think, that was during yesterday's video. And then of course that initiates a secondary condition where we need to see BBWP volatility essentially having a decrease in the close over closure on the moving average right here, which we actually did start to witness as of right here. These were the LARP lines from yesterday as far as like what to look for. That has since happened. And so if we throw in a strategy tester, we can see that yes, indeed, it has entered into an official setup right there. And over the past 94 tested iterations over the past few years, 70 or just above 70% of those did have a nice upside bounce. In fact, when we go ahead and look at the performance summary, we can see that the average winning trade was about 6%. Now the average losing trade was about 8%, just to be 100% clear as well, and about 30% of the time we do see that, essentially happen. And why can't I see this over here? Yeah, the average amount of bars was 24, which I believe we calculated yesterday at like 144 hours, which was like 6 days or so. I need to do this again, just to double check now that we actually have it. But 24 times 6 equals 144. Yep, that's right. Divided by 24 equals 6. So 6 days from basically, when exactly did this fire off? Late Tuesday, at least for myself over here in Helsinki. But so that would put us where? Like Sunday-ish, Saturday, Sunday-ish. Let's say, again, keeping in mind that these are averages, there's going to be some variance within there. But again, if this is going to play out, we'd essentially expect sideways in the short term, no major breaks, obviously, when today's event hits for CPI, and then, emerging into like later this week / the weekend, 6% on top of current price action would put Bitcoin at about 29,200 to 29,300. That would obviously be a great step in the way of marking this off as like quite bullish and getting ready for that next move up to $35,000, which I suspect, by the end of this month, we're going to see Bitcoin either probably at 35 or down around like 23 to 21. Personal opinion. End of this month / early June. Moving on from there, I did also want to go over that the Jewel Light is actually having a bit of a setup over here as well. 6 hour time frame, obviously. And in this case, we can see that it's very, 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 very simple setup. But basically, anytime that we do see that the 6 hour Jewel Light goes below 36 and then turns white, that initiates a setup condition alongside low PMARP, in this case below 50 percentile. We actually had an iteration over here, far off not so long ago, getting that move basically all the way up to like $30,000. Not bad. But there is another one staring us in front of our very faces right here, right now. So in this case, what was the average move based upon this? Or actually, just what is the general stats with this one? Yeah, about 74.36% probability of a nice upside move over the course of 17 bars. Again, 17 times 6 would be what? Would be 102 divided by 24, gives us how many days? About 4.25 days. So, now we can kind of come up with a range of time that would maybe make more sense if this is going to play out to the upside alongside the other setup that we just looked at. So that'd give us between about 4 days to 6 days. So what would that be? That'd be like between Friday, Saturday to like Sunday-ish, let's say, if it does play out with an upside move. And I completely forgot to go over the average loss for the prior one, but it was about 8%, by the way, and that would put Bitcoin down around $23,000, by the way, as well. Anyways, in this case, for the winning side, on this particular setup, 4.5% was the average winning trade here. So looking at that, we can get some more interesting areas to the upside, giving us an area of interest between about 28,800. Again, this would be for this particular one, and then the HPDR related one would be like 29.2. So somewhere between 28.8 to 29.2 if it does play out. If it doesn't play out, probably looking somewhere down around, or what was 8% off of current price action? Was it 25? It's 25, not 23. But obviously that would set into the downstream of effects several other things, which probably does propel things further down if and when that does happen. So I suspect that a lot of this is going to be clarified starting with today's event. The bigger, if you're just looking for like an obvious number to be watching, 26.8 on spot price action, daily closing basis, or 26.9 on CME for the same area. For getting significant downside at that point, probably looking at least towards 25, probably bounce there. Then, there is good reason to believe that 23 would be tagged. By the same token, if Bitcoin can just kind of hold its own sideways here into the weekend, well, at that point, we very likely see a rally up somewhere around 29. Again, around that region, it's maybe get like a short-term pullback, but I'd probably be looking for Bitcoin to just bust on through and start to initiate that move to $35,000, throughout the rest of this month, if and when that does happen. So I think that's a good place for me to be leaving off on this video yet again. Today's event going to be a big one, as it is typically, and I think that there's a few more kind of headwinds coming up relatively soon after that as well. So this next like week or so, I suspect is going to be kind of it's going to be fun again. It's going to be fun again, man, because realistically, we've just been looking at a range since basically like late March, early April, which is okay, but I do think that resolution is coming in this next like 7 to 10 day spread here. All right, sweet. I think that's a good place for me to be leaving it off. Take care, much love, and see you hopefully soon.